In Blue Political Roundup, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi is one step closer to clinching the Speaker of the House position again. The Democratic lawmaker was nominated to the post Wednesday by her party. However, it's not a done deal. She'll have to get past a floor vote in January. After Wednesday's vote, Pelosi was looking to the future.
In the course of these last days and weeks, has been my privilege to listen to new members, listen to our members who have been here a while, hear their views about how we go forward.
Numerous Democrats campaigned on opposing Pelosi's agenda. However, some critics have since backed down. Molly Hooper joins me now from Capitol Hill. She's a congressional reporter for The Hill and a CBSN political contributor. Hi, Molly. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
Molly, could Pelosi face trouble during January's full House vote?
Yes, she could. And during today's vote, the Democrats decided to have a secret ballot, which is something that they normally do. And Pelosi insisted that they give the caucus the option to vote no or yes on whether to nominate her to be Speaker. And she received 203 yes votes, but 32 no votes, which led some Democrats, including one of her lead detractors, Kathleen Rice, to come out after the vote and said, listen, clearly Pelosi does not have the votes to win on the House floor, because in order to become Speaker of the House, each member of the House of Representatives stands up and says a name. And if she doesn't get 218 Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, shouted on the floor, that poses a problem for her because that's not a majority. And so there may be different tactics that have to be taken. Maybe some members might vote present to lower the threshold by which she would actually need to get 218 or whatever the number would be. But still, coming out of that vote, she exudes confidence, but she still has a lot of work to do to round up additional, to switch detractors.
So how much attention should we be paying to those no votes? We, of course, don't know who they are exactly. Could they form some kind of coalition?
Well, they're trying to. Now, Nancy Pelosi is very good at whipping up support. I got to tell you, I've seen her in action on the floor during the Obamacare vote, and I'm telling you, this woman goes around with a list and a pencil and crosses people up. I mean, I've seen her in action, and she is serious, and she knows how to turn detractors. In fact, one of her former detractors, Brian Higgins from New York, came out after the vote and said, "Listen, Nancy Pelosi, she can do this. This is only the first quarter. She's got a lot of time between now and the beginning of January when the House actually votes on the next Speaker. So she can work with those members who are opposing her, including Kathleen Rice, perhaps, to get policy promises from them. For example, Higgins wanted to have a vote and take seriously bills that have to do with expanding Medicare. And she basically promised him that, and to have a role in the infrastructure bill that's coming up. So she knows how to sweeten the pot, so to speak. And he said, listen, absolutely, these members have a lot of leverage right now, and they just have to use it wisely.
So, Molly, sticking with Congress, the Senate advanced a resolution Wednesday seeking to end U.S. military support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen. Here's what Senator Lindsey Graham had to say about taking those actions even further unless he gets briefed by the CIA on the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Let's take a listen.
If that briefing is not given soon, it's going to be hard for me to vote for any spending bill. I'm talking about any key vote. Anything that you need me for to get out of town, I ain't doing it until we hear from the CIA.
So, Molly, how serious is the White House taking these threats from Senator Graham?
Well, they better be taking them seriously, because keep in mind, Lindsey Graham just yesterday or the day before was sort of the golden boy with the White House after, defending Brett Kavanaugh and really ushering Kavanaugh's nomination through. He's kind of been in the thick of it with the White House. But on this issue in particular, he's not having any of it. He wants that briefing. And really, he can hold up business going forward. Keep in mind, he said, anything you want my support on to get out of town. And that's the key, get out of town. The Senate and the House want to be out of here by December 14th. They don't want to have a partial government shutdown. And Lindsey Graham is essentially saying, I'm not supporting it. I will oppose it. And a senator actually has the power to pretty much hold up legislation if they're opposing it. They can draw it out, as we've seen with these various nominations. And so Lindsey Graham, I would take him at his word, and I believe that the White House is. And really what the Senate did today they voted to move on to consider a bill having to do with the Yemen war. I mean, it was a big step for the supporters of that bill, but at the same time, again, it's almost more of a threat to the White House saying, take us seriously, we want to know what happened, and we want to take action on that.
And do you think the White House is going to listen, though, Molly?
Well, I mean, today they had a veto-proof majority. I mean, the symbolism of the vote today, I believe it was like 62 or 63 in favor, that overcomes the threshold that the Senate must reach in order to overcome a veto. And so essentially the Senate's saying, listen, we are going to vote for this bill that you don't want, which is essentially end U.S. aid for military aid for the Saudi war with Yemen. And by doing that, we can veto, we have a veto-proof majority. So even though you don't like what we're doing, you can veto it, but it's still going to become law.
Right.
So take us seriously. And I think that that's something that the administration is doing. It's just unclear which steps they're going to take next.
Well, it certainly seems clear that the administration's hope that the anger over Jamal Khashoggi's murder would somehow slowly go away. That doesn't appear to be happening. So the White House is going to have to come up with a plan B, it seems.
Yes, it does. And I mean, Mike Pompeo today, when he was speaking to reporters afterwards, I mean, keep in mind, this is a guy, the Secretary of State, who was just the CIA director. And he had come up and briefed senators on not necessarily this matter when he was the CIA director, of course, but on other similar matters that popped up when he was the CIA head. And so when reporters asked him about that today, he simply, all he could say was, well, I'm here now. You got me. And that just isn't going to cut it for a lot of senators. And I don't know if the White House really anticipated sort of this unusual coalition that rose up in the face of what's going on with Saudi Arabia and the president's reaction to, the Crown Prince's involvement or whatever role he played in the Khashoggi killing. I'm not sure that they anticipated the coalition of folks who had already been pushing for this bill to end the U.S. military aid to Saudi for the Yemen war, with those individuals like Lindsey Graham who are so upset about what the Crown Prince did or didn't do with the Khashoggi murder. Right. So, they came together, and we'll see where it goes from here. But next week, the Senate would take up this debate, and it would start next week. But again, if the White House is able to get Gina Haspel to brief senators, that may be quashed.
That's right. All right. So, Molly, President Trump also threatened to impose tariffs on foreign-built cars Wednesday. This is in response to General Motors' plan to lay off 14,000 workers. What kind of blowback is the president already receiving for his comments?
Well, it's unclear at this point, just because, from my perspective, I've been covering some other things, but I do know that members of the Senate and members of the House, especially those people who represent the states like Maryland, Michigan, and North Dakota, South Dakota, states that have been hit hard by these tariffs, in the blowback for that, they really want the administration to work this out. Mm-hmm. And I know, it sort of creates strange bedfellows, given that you have liberal Democrats in, say, Ohio, like a Tim Ryan or a Marcy Kaptur, who kind of support what the president's doing, in imposing tariffs, because they want free trade for people, for those folks who work in their districts. And, when you talk about the farmers who've been declaring bankruptcy, the increased number of bankruptcy in blowback from tariffs related to the trade war on the agricultural products, the senators want that also to get fixed. It's just unclear how much more, American consumers can handle, and what's going to happen next, and how long these people who are directly implicated, will hold out and say, okay, we support the president because we want fair trade, but at the cost of what? Our jobs. Right. And so this is going to be a key issue, I think, going forward, and I'm sure we will hear about it more next week as well.
Absolutely. Patience wears thin when your paycheck is being hit. All right, Molly Hooper on Capitol Hill. Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you.